Since Conor McGregor's foray into boxing, many MMA fighters have wanted to follow his example and try their luck in the boxing ring. However, Dana White was not willing to spend his assets on meaningless adventures. Only after 6 years did one of the thousands of UFC fighters manage to achieve the impossible and arrange such a fight. Francis Ngannou took a crazy risk and finally made it happen, with none other than the current WBC champion Tyson Fury as his opponent in the ring. For the Predator, everything fell into place as if in a dream, but for the entire sports community, this event could be the worst thing to happen in recent times. Today's video will be dedicated to the Fury vs Ngannou fight, and I'll tell you why this fight is the worst thing that could happen to boxing. Please don't forget to like and comment with 4 words, and also subscribe so you never miss new videos. And we're starting. Here we go. Before we criticize everyone and everything, we must mention the positive aspects, or rather the aspect of this showdown. Naturally, I'm talking about the public resonance. There will be millions of fans all over the planet who will want to watch this, and I can understand why. Yes, we are giving Francis very few chances, but what if he still pulls something off? Such a huge and powerful guy can knock out anyone with a single touch, and right now, the Predator is training with the legendary Mike Tyson. Maybe the Iron will add a couple of new tricks to Ngannou's arsenal and he will produce something extraordinary? Even if that doesn't happen, it's still interesting to see if Fury can finish off such a tough opponent. Throughout Ngannou's MMA career, no one has even knocked him down, even when he was on the brink of exhaustion. Could Tyson finally do it? For the reasons mentioned above, the fight is interesting to those who follow the sports niche, and on the other hand, such a fight will attract a casual audience that tunes in once a year. A huge muscular guy with biceps bigger than your head will face off against a chubby, hairy giant on spindly legs who happens to beat everyone and holds a record of 34-0. Won't such a spectacle gather a whole crowd in front of the screens? It definitely will, and boxing will only benefit from it, as it will receive a massive influx of audience, attention, and money. Now that we've discussed the positive aspects, let's finally turn to the negative sides of the collision between these two champions. Specifically, this fight has 2 major problems. The main one being Tyson Fury is delaying the whole heavyweight division. Think about it. Instead of fighting for unified belts or at least defending them against real contenders, the current champion is ready to fight someone who has no connection to the world of boxing. Isn't that foolish? Why should the best boxers in their weight class like Andy Ruiz, Frankie Sanchez and others waste months or even years of their careers waiting in vain while the Gypsy King beats a former UFC champion? In my opinion, it's utterly unfair. In contrast to Tyson, who is selfish when it comes to other heavyweights, we have the example of the actively competing champion Alexander Usyk. The Ukrainian holds 3 of the 4 major titles and defends them against not so prominent but legitimate contenders. Moreover, when it comes to facing Tyson and unifying the titles, Usyk was willing to make any concessions, even agreeing to an unfair distribution of earnings, just to meet Fury and make history. However, the Gypsy King decided to tuck his tail and shield himself from all troubles, with the WBC organization primarily aiding him in doing so. This brings us smoothly to another question. Why does this meeting even have a right to exist? The thing is, ever since the former head of the WBC Suleiman Sr. stepped down, his son took over the organization, and for quite some time now, all he's been doing is dismantling the great legacy of his predecessors. The company favors those who are advantageous to them, sets up their own special judging commissions, places convenient referees, and when they want, they distribute titles. You don't have to look far for examples. Just take a look at Devin Haney, who is moving up in the super lightweight division but still retains his WBC champion status in his original weight class. Instead, they've called him the champion on vacation. If you pause for a moment to think about the Ngannou vs Fury fight, it becomes clear that no organization on the planet should have sanctioned their meeting for obvious reasons. Francis is not a professional boxer. Logically, a person with a 0-0 record shouldn't be fighting a reigning champion, but for Mauricio Suleiman, there are no problems. The WBC leadership boldly announced the fight under professional rules, the title on the line, and that's it. Is it really that simple? Can anyone walk into boxing and immediately fight one of the top-rated fighters regardless of weight class? Many point to the Conor vs Mayweather fight as an example, saying it was sanctioned, so there should be no problem with this. Yes, that situation is equally controversial. However, at that time, Money had already officially ended his career and returned just for a single bout against the Irishman. Ironically, at that time the guys were fighting for the hastily created WBC money belt, but that's beside the point. Unlike Floyd, Tyson is a current champion with his own responsibilities, but he consistently avoids them and only pretends to be ready to fight anyone on the planet. For boxing fans, purely as a sport, this gesture by the Gypsy King simply destroys everything he has worked so hard for and spoken so much about. If Fury were a champion in any other organization, I'm almost 100% sure that mentioning a fight with Ngannou would immediately result in him being stripped of his title and sent in all directions because serious organizations dislike such clownery. Unfortunately, WBC now only loves money, and these guys are willing to do anything for it. On the other hand, understanding Tyson Fury's rationale in this situation is not difficult at all. What's the point of fighting dangerous guys like Usyk and risking a clean record when you can earn almost as much money for fighting easy opponents? Let's discuss this a bit more. Currently, the Brit claims that Francis Ngannou is guaranteed to receive no less than $10 million for a fight with him, and the Predator himself has already mentioned a similar purse. So how many trucks with money will Fury get on his backyard in this case? Does it seem likely they will split it 50-50 or even 60-40? I strongly doubt it, especially considering how Fury wanted to rip off Usyk by proposing a 70-30 split. So, for a nearly 40-year-old Cameroonian with a recent back injury and no boxing background, Fury will receive at least as much as he would for fighting White or Chisora, which is roughly around $30 million. When you hear these figures, think about how you would act in Tyson's shoes. We cannot forget that Fury's ability to command such high payments for lackluster opponents is due in large part to the Gypsy King himself. He worked for years on his name and status, and when the opportunity arose to showcase himself in a fight against the champion, Tyson did it immediately, and the whole world was talking about the incredible British boxer in a Butlins costume. Victory over Klitschko brought Fury enormous earnings, fame and status, but since then, the element of sports in his fights has decreased, giving way to a flashy show, and that's truly regrettable. As a boxer, Fury is brilliant, and with his skill set, he could have cleaned out the entire division long ago, including, in my opinion, Alexander Usyk. However, money rules the world, and the Gypsy King is no exception. Teddy Atlas and Chael Sonnen express quite obvious but at the same time correct thoughts on this topic.
Is it just about that? Because to me, it's a fallacy. It's a mirage that you're going to really judge who's better, the old, that old question, the MMA fighter or the boxer? Because the MMA fighter, you guys, you're not allowed to use all your tools. So to me, it's a cheat. It's not fair. It's all about the money.
So I'm not putting my record on the line. I'm not putting my belts on the line. I'm not putting anything of my family's lineage of 3 different generations on the line. We're going to go do something different. Those sons of bitches might as well arm wrestle.
And what if they really organize an arm wrestling match right after the fight? I think in that case, the winner for us would be just as obvious. Okay, jokes aside, let's finish our discussion of the fight on a positive note, without any unnecessary negativity. Let's think, besides Fury and the WBC, who benefits millions on broadcast sales, who else would take interest from organizing this bout? Actually, there's another party that comes out in an incredibly advantageous position. Francis Ngannou, and is winning on all fronts. Oh, the number of jokes and taunts that were aimed at this predetermined guy. On the day when the Gypsy King challenged him, the Predator was a UFC fighter, and in the following months, he did everything to terminate his contract and become a free agent. MMA fans laughed at him, saying that nobody was waiting for Francis and he had missed his chance to make millions. Then, according to public opinion, Ngannou made another mistake by rejecting all MMA promotions, demanding an exorbitant price, and unexpectedly signed with the PFL. It seemed like he had just hopped onto the last carriage of a departing train. Nobody knew when the Giant would have his next fight, if at all, and talks about a showdown with Fury had long faded away. Soon, people started forgetting about the Predator himself until he suddenly announced to the whole world that he would indeed face Tyson, and not an exhibition match but under professional boxing rules. Ngannou didn't just fulfill his plan, but he also proved wrong all the doubters, including the former boss Dana White, who still can't stand talking about this subject. For the fight against the Gypsy King, Ngannou will earn more money than he did throughout his UFC career, as he himself has stated in interviews. Maybe all of this is just talk and Francis wants to spite his former boss, or maybe not. It's quite difficult to answer that question. In any case, Ngannou is an incredibly stubborn guy who still managed to achieve his goals, and you can't help but be happy for him. This fight, regardless of the outcome, will not only change his life forever, but has already etched Francis into history, making him a legend who was able to leave on his own terms. And that's all. Give your likes and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. What do you think about this fight? Does it make sense, or does it only tarnish the reputation of boxing? Share your thoughts in the comments.